In this episode, we will be discussing Nagara style of temple architecture and the concepts related to it. Temple architecture is representative of the ideals of dharma, values enshrined in the Hindu religion. Influenced by early Buddhist structures such as the stupa, the first Hindu temples were built from rock-cut caves. The oldest rock-cut architecture is found in Barabar caves, Bihar, which were built around the 3rd century BC. Then, with the arrival of Gupta architecture in the 4th to 5th century CE, the first freestanding Hindu temples were constructed with features such as stars and projecting niches. The architectural principles of Hindu temples in India are described in Shilpa Shastra. Shilpa Shastra mentions 3 main types of temple architecture: Nagara or the northern style, the Dravida or the southern style, and the Visara or mixed style. Chronologically, the early Hindu temples are often called classical up to the 7th or 8th century, while those after the classical period through 12th or 13th century are sometimes referred to as medieval. Shifting towards the basic form of a Hindu temple. Garbhagriha literally means womb house. It is a cave-like sanctum which houses the main icon of the temple. In earlier times, it was a small cubicle with one entrance. In later periods, it grew into a large chamber. The mandapa, the entrance to the temple, it could be a portico or a colonnaded hall where worshippers stand. The Shikhara or Vimana. Noticed from the 5th century CE, it is a mountain-like spire on top. In North India, it is called Shikhara and is curving in shape. In the south, it is called pyramidal tower and is called Vimana. Amalaka, stone-like disc seen at the top of the temple, mostly in North Indian temples. Kalasha, it is the topmost part of the temple, mainly seen in North Indian styles. Antarala, it is a vestibule between the Garbhagriha and the Mandapa. Jagati, this is common in North Indian temples and is a raised platform where devotees can sit and pray. Vahana, it is the vehicle of the main deity which along with the standard pillar or dwaj which are placed axially. Now looking at the Nagara or North Indian temple architecture. In the Nagara style, the temple is generally constructed on a upraised platform called Jagati. Mandapas are present in the front of Garbhagriha. These are adorned with the Shikhara, the tallest one being above the Garbhagriha. Nagara style doesn't usually have elaborate boundary walls or gateways. Generally, there is no water tank in the temple premises and the Pradakshina Pada is covered. The Garbhagriha is always located directly under the tallest tower. The Grand Temple at Ram Janmabhoomi in Ayodhya will follow the Nagara style of temple architecture. Now, shifting towards classification of North Indian temple architecture. Firstly, we will discuss the classification based on Shikhara types. The first one is Latina Rekha Prasada. It is the simple and most common type of Shikhara. It is square at the base and the walls curve or slopes inwards to a point on top. The Latina types are mainly used for housing the Garbhagriha. Later on, the Latina buildings grew complex and instead of appearing like a single tower, the temple began to support many small towers, which were clustered together like a rising mountain type, with the tallest one being in the center, and this was the one which was always above the Garbhagriha. Shifting towards the second, that is Hamsana type Shikhara. They are broader and shorter than Latina type. Their roof is composed of several slabs that gently rise to a single point over the center of the building, unlike the Latina ones which look like sharply rising towers. Hamsana roofs do not curve inwards, instead they slope upward on a straight incline. In many North Indian temples, the Hamsana type is used for mandapas while the main Garbhagriha is housed in a Latina building. And the last one is Vallabhi type Shikhara. These are rectangular buildings with a roof that rises into a vaulted chamber. The edge of the vaulted chamber is round like a bamboo or wooden wagons that would have been drawn by bullocks in ancient times. The form of this temple is influenced by ancient building forms that were already in existence. Now let's focus on classification of Nagara temples on the basis of their geographical distribution. Central India, Khajuraho. These temples were generally north or east facing, and both the interior and exterior walls were lavishly decorated with carvings. Sculptures were generally erotic in their themes. Temples were generally made of sandstone and had 3 chambers: Garbhagriha, Mandapa and Ardha Mandapa. Panchayatna style of temple making was followed. Panchayatna is an architectural style where the main shrine is built on a rectangular plinth with 4 smaller subsidiary shrines at the 4 corners and making it a total of 5 shrines. This is Pancha. Example, Kandariya Mahadev Temple. Temples were built on relatively high platforms and belonged to Hindu as well as Jain religion. The temples at Khajuraho were made in the 10th century, about 400 years after the temple at Deoghad, and the complex is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The temples were patronized by Chandela kings. The largest temple at Khajuraho is the Kandariya Mahadeva Temple, which is attributed to King Ganda. The Lakshmana temple dedicated to Lord Vishnu was built in 954 by Chandela king Dhanga. There are some Jain temples as well, as Chausant Yogini temple. Chausant Yogini is a temple of small square shrines dedicated to esoteric devis or goddesses associated with the rise of tantric worship. Western India Solanki school. This school is also known as Maru Gurjara style. There are 2 numerous temples in the northwestern parts of India, including Gujarat and Rajasthan, and stylistically extendable at times to western Madhya Pradesh. The stones to build temples ranges in color and type. While sandstone is the commonest, a grey to black basalt can be seen in some of the 10th to 12th century temples sculptures. The most exuberant and famed are the manipulatable soft white marble, which is also seen in some of the 10th to 12th century Jain temples in Mount Abu and the 15th century temple at Ranatpur. It shows how earlier artistic traditions of the region mixed with a post-Gupta style and gave rise to a distinct style of sculpture. Examples: the Modhera Sun Temple, Gujarat, built in 1026-27 by Bhima, one of the Solanki dynasty. The Solanks were a branch of later Chalukyas. There is a massive rectangular step tank called Surya Kund in front of it. The 100 square meter rectangular pond is perhaps the grandest temple tank in India. 108 miniature shrines are carved in between the steps inside the tank. East India, Kalinga, Odisha school. East Indian temples include those found in the northeast, Bengal and Odisha, and each of these 3 areas produces a distinct type of temple. The history of architecture in the northeast and Bengal is hard to study because a number of ancient buildings in those regions were renovated, and what survives now is later brick or concrete temples at those sites. It appears that terracotta was the main medium of construction. A large number of sculptures have been found in Assam and Bengal, which shows the development of important regional schools in those regions. Examples: Kamakya Temple at Shaktipeeth in Assam is dedicated to goddess Kamakya and was built in the 17th century. In Odisha, Shikharas in this school were known as Rekadhuls. Example: Sun Temple at Konark, also known as the Black Pagoda, built in the 13th century by King Narasimhadeva, one of Ganga dynasty. The Konark Temple was conceived as a gigantic chariot of the sun god. The temple is included in the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1984, protected under the National Framework of India Act 1958 and its rules of 1959. The Konark is the third link of Odisha's Golden Triangle, the first link being Jagannath Puri and the second link is Bhubaneswar. Also known as Black Pagoda due to its dark color and used as a navigational landmark by ancient sailors to Odisha. Jagannath Temple at Puri. The temple is part of Char Dham, Badrinath, Dwaraka, Puri and Rameshwaram, pilgrimages that a Hindu is expected to make in one's lifetime. The temple is believed to be constructed in the 12th century by King Anantavarman, Chodaganga, Deva of the Eastern Ganga dynasty. The temple is famous for its annual Rath Yatra or chariot festival. Hilly region. A unique form of architecture developed in the hills of Kumaon, Garhwal, Himachal and Kashmir. Kashmir's proximity to Gandhara sites such as Taxila, Peshawar and northwest frontier left the region a strong Gandhara influence by the 5th century CE. Both Buddhist and Hindu traditions began to intermingle and spread in the hills. The hills also had their own tradition of wooden buildings with pitched roofs, and as a result, while the main Garbhagriha and the Shikhara are made in Latina Rekaprasad type, the Mandapa is an older form of wooden architecture. Sometimes the temple itself takes on a pagoda shape. The Karkota period of Kashmir is the most significant in terms of architecture. The most important temples of these regions are Panretan, Laksana Devi Mandir, Jageshwar in Almora, Chambawat near Pithogarh, etc.
In the next episode of this series, we will go through and understand the Dravida or South Indian temple style. Until then, stay tuned and stay updated.